Look, the House is a rough and rowdy place, but Mike Johnson is going to be just fine. I served 20 years in the military. It's my absolute honor to be in Congress, but I serve with some real scumbags.
That's Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez from Texas, absolutely skewering members of his own party. But if you think he was aggressive there, he ain't done yet. Let's watch more of what he had to say.
Look, Matt Gaetz, he paid minors to have sex with him at drug parties. Bob Good endorsed my opponent, a known neo-Nazi. These people used to walk around with white hoods at night. Now they're walking around with white hoods in the daytime. What didn't surprise me that some of these folks voted against aid to Israel, but I was encouraged to see by a nearly 10-to-1 mark that Republicans supported our allies on the battlefield.
Wow. John Iadarola, you have a sitting Republican member of Congress of the House of Representatives referring to members of his own party as Nazis and sexual predators. What say you?
He's been watching the news, I guess, maybe TYT, to realize who they are. But I love, every once in a while something will happen. And honestly, with him, I'm not even 100% sure exactly what it is, but something will happen that frees them up to say all of the things that you're kind of obligated by reality to say, and that probably for some of these people is burning inside of them to say. And he's 100% right. I mean, like, one would think as a child that our elected officials are the best of the best. They're chosen from us to represent us, and they're wise and they're learned. No, some of these people you would not want to share an Uber with. They're horrendous people. And the fact that he was a part of it or whatever, I guess doesn't make him immune to recognizing that some of them are creeps, some of them are incredibly ignorant, some of them are incredibly racist and homophobic. It's good to have someone admit it on the news. It draws some attention, perhaps.
So look, I typically would agree with you entirely, but I do think context matters. And what's so interesting to me is that this context has to do with the division among House Republicans in regard to sending military aid to foreign wars, right? To Ukraine, to Israel, obviously, that was mentioned, and also to Taiwan, probably to bolster their defenses should China try to take over. And I don't begrudge the Republican members of the House who were against signing those bills, because look, I disagree with them on almost everything, right? Except wanting to pump the brakes on some of this military spending. And so, he calls out Matt Gaetz, which, by the way, I should note, Matt Gaetz has denied the allegation that he paid to have sex with underage females. Gaetz also gave Gonzalez a nickname, Turncoat Tony. And so, this war is raging on. But I do think the America First crowd in this very specific situation has a point, and the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party ain't having it. And Gonzalez very much is in the neoconservative wing of the Republican Party. So as you can imagine, Republican lawmakers, the Republican lawmakers that Gonzalez was attacking did not take kindly to his statements, and now they're backing his primary opponent to try to get him unseated. So Representative Matt Gaetz and Representative Bob Good, two of the individuals he attacked in that video we showed you, joined by other hardliners, shot back at Gonzalez, criticizing his voting record, slamming him as a Republican in name only, and endorsing his primary opponent, Brandon Herrera, a social media influencer and self-proclaimed Second Amendment activist who has worked to plant himself to the right of Gonzalez. So he sounds, perfect for the Republican Party, right? Social media influencer, who self-proclaimed Second Amendment activist. Now, the rift among the House GOP again is between the traditional neocon wing of the party and the MAGA / America First crowd. Gonzalez did in fact vote for all 4 parts of House Speaker Mike Johnson's foreign aid package, and that includes money to Ukraine, which for the America First crowd is like the biggest offense, right? Like for me, I I'm not necessarily against helping Ukraine. I just don't understand what the strategy is here. Like, is this just an open-ended, we're gonna keep sending tens of billions of dollars to Ukraine as they continue losing the war? Does that make sense? Are there other options? Like, you're not even allowed to ask those questions. People lose their minds. Please don't at me. I know you guys are coming for me. I'm just asking, what is the plan here? But that was really the sticking point. I would venture to say they would probably be more in favor of sending money to Israel, but there is a faction of Republican lawmakers who are not okay with sending money to Israel as well. And so now you have Steve Bannon calling for an alliance among the America First crowd and progressives in order to squash these military funding bills.
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
What do you think about that, John?
I think that Steve Bannon is Steve Bannon, and you can get in bed with him if you want. I don't think anyone in history has ever enjoyed the experience of being in bed with him, metaphorically or in any other way. But yeah, no, I don't agree. Look, I am not against people necessarily crossing the aisle to get something done. There have been weird bedfellows, even Matt Gaetz, who, like I've referred to in the last few minutes ago, is a reprehensible person. He has taken some positions that have been reasonable, both when he was a state legislator and in Congress. There are some topics, drug legalization or something, where he is not wholly unreasonable. If you want to come together with him to do a specific thing that you think would make the country better, then feel free to do that. Just understand that in some cases, especially if it's a really big thing, there are consequences to that. Like you could potentially agree with Steve Bannon or something on a particular funding thing. Just understand how he is going to use that in his rhetoric going forward to demonize other sort of funding that you might agree with. I mean, you can't have that and not have the consequences that come with it. And look, I agree. I think that historically we have been way too ready to spend huge sums of money on foreign conflicts. I think that we should always have contextual conversations about what the specific ones are. As you said, what the goals are. Let's articulate what the strategy actually is. And what I've generally hated in American politics is there will be people who, in some cases, will be like, well, we shouldn't be involved. America first, no nation building. Let's spend billions carpet bombing Syria. Like they pick and choose which conflicts they like and which they don't. And the entire thing is underneath the umbrella of supposedly being anti-intervention. If these people are actually do not want us to spend that money and believe that we should focus here in America, we should potentially cut our military budget, because why would we need the budget to be as big as it is if we're not gonna be, manning nearly 200, countries worth of bases abroad, then that's fine. If it's ideologically consistent, that's fine. But if it's Marjorie Greene or whatever, and she just wants us to take the money and start space lasering our southern border and invading northern Mexico, then that is not the principled stand that she is presenting it as. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, there's also other areas where I see a lack of principle, right? So especially when it comes to funding legislation to control the border or have better control of the border. Republicans know what happened. Republicans saw what happened in the Senate. The Senate had passed almost, they could have passed a bipartisan bill that was pretty harsh in regard to immigration policy. But they decided to squash it as soon as Donald Trump said, do not pass an immigration bill under the Biden administration. It's gonna help him get reelected. And I wanna run on immigration being out of control. And that's what they did. They killed the bill. But I do want to go to Representative Good, who was also attacked by Gonzalez, because he wants to make it seem as though being a neocon is synonymous with being a Democrat, and that's not quite right. He says, quote, "It is not surprising that one of the most liberal rhinos," he's referring to Congressman Gonzalez here, "in Congress, who has egregiously fought real border security and votes like a Democrat, would resort to the Dem playbook in screaming racism. Thankfully, the people of the Texas 23rd District can vote for change and an America First patriot in Brandon Herrera." So that's the opponent that they're backing here. But while neoconservatism ain't worthy of admiration, what Tom Good was referring to there wasn't the neoconservative votes. He was referring to some of the other votes that are actually more indicative of a liberal lawmaker. So last year, for instance, the Texas Republican Party overwhelmingly voted to censure him over his votes in favor of a measure protecting same-sex marriage on the federal level, which is a good thing, right? I don't agree with his neoconservatism, but I like that he voted this way to protect same-sex marriage. And for the bipartisan gun safety bill that moved through Congress after the school shooting in Uvalde, which is of course located in his district. So I'm sure that had a huge impact on him. He also criticized an early version of the GOP's border bill as unchristian. And so his colleagues in the Republican caucus did not take kindly to that either. So he's really a mixed bag, to keep it real with you. And I'm curious to see how this election plays out, because Mike Johnson appeared alongside Gonzalez at a fundraiser recently, and that really upset Republicans in the MAGA caucus. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they consider him, like they will say that Mike Johnson is Nancy Pelosi, but I think they hate him more than Nancy Pelosi recently, honestly. And so I'm not sure that might well help Gonzalez in some ways, but in terms of not attracting negative attention, it certainly will not. Yeah, look, I'm glad that you're willing to acknowledge those things that he has done that has made him stand out. I'd previously seen the censure for wanting there to be some sort of gun control. That's madness that you would oppose this guy who he's likely spoken to many of the parents who lost kids. And you say not only should he come out of those conversations and do nothing, but how dare he do something? He needs to be punished for that. That's insane. Look, and it might be that this is just simply too many stances that set him apart from not necessarily where the Republican caucus is, but where they see the Republican caucus going under potentially the next speaker. If they do win in November or whatever, Mike Johnson might well be replaced by someone more conservative if they have a little bit more stronger of a majority. Maybe they think they can afford to start to shed those people. I mean, there have been conversations certainly like that in the progressives and the Democratic side. You identify someone who agrees on some things, but has taken some stances, maybe on like Cuellar or something like that, to talk about another sort of Republican Freudian slip, Texas congressman. And so, yeah, look, if they want to do the battle, that's fine, as long as it's conducted in honesty, actually accurately representing what people have actually done and said.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.